Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood Sarah back again with some more social media tips and tricks. As you can see, we're still riding the Instagram train here. And as you can tell from today's title, the video is going to be about how to take the best Instagram photos. So I'm going to be talking about all the best secret and mysterious tips and tricks for taking the best Instagram photos. Now, I've seen every trick in the book, partially because I've watched every YouTube video on it, but also because I have a lot of friends who are Instagram famous, and I've also got friends who are models. So I've seen tricks in every single industry that has to do with photo taking and what you can do to get better photos. Now, first things first, we have to cover the type of photos you're gonna be putting on your Instagram account. Now, you can't fill up your entire Instagram with selfies unless you want a really boring Instagram account. So let's go through the different types of photos that you can have on your feed. I like to make sure that my profile's got a healthy amount of these 5 types of photos: the face photo or portrait, the full body shot, your macro shot, so like your close-up shots, like the really kind of close-up detailed ones, whatever, landscape, and aerial shots. Now, aerial shot doesn't have to mean you shot something from a drone. Drone shots are pretty cool, but most people don't just have a drone laying around where they could have like a really cool shot taken. But this could just be something like one of those coffee table shots where you're at Starbucks or whatever and you want to take a picture of your coffee and be super basic, but not every photo has to be like that. It's just the concept of having your camera above the subject. Integrating all 5 of these types of photos into your profile is going to make sure it keeps everything interesting and not boring, and interesting and nice to look at and interesting. Now, let's talk about your camera. All you really need to do is make sure you've got a camera that can take detailed photos. Even an iPhone 5 is fine. You'd be surprised how many incredible photos come off of those things looking like a DSLR. If you've got a DSLR, I would say by all means, go for it. If you've got a Canon, Nikon, Sony, anything nice that's a DSLR, it gives you really nice depth of field, blurriness in the background, bokeh, all those fancy photography terms, but it also helps you take your photo to the next level and you don't have to do nearly as much editing. Another camera great for pictures for Instagram is your Polaroid or your Instax Mini. Now, I know these things don't have Wi-Fi built into them, so you can't just port them right over to your Instagram, but it really gives an awesome organic feel to your photos if you take one of your Instax or Polaroids and you just snap a picture of it, pinned on your wall, laying out on a coffee table, or even just holding it in your hand, and you can take that with your iPhone. That's how some of my best Polaroid shots came out, and I've shared them to the internet. I find that's the best way to put your retro photos on Instagram. You can even see the famous people who've done it themselves. Now, for portraits or face photos, I have 2 preferences. Either an iPhone 7 Plus that's got portrait mode, go for it. If you've got one of those, do it. I'm stuck with an iPhone 7. Not complaining, but it doesn't have portrait mode, which really sucks. But it's such a great tool to have. So if you do have the iPhone 7 with portrait mode or any one of those fancy Samsungs that, has any mode like that, use it. By all means, they make for awesome portrait photos. Or if you have a DSLR, something that you can zoom in enough to blur your background, make a shot look nice and intimate, really give some detail to your face, also go for those. I don't recommend Polaroids or your Instax Mini for doing portrait shots. And then the other different shots you could do, like landscapes or aerial shots, you can use either your iPhone, your Polaroid, your DSLR, whichever camera. There's a way to make it work, but it's all personal preference. As I like to think, or at least encourage myself, good photos aren't the product of good cameras, they're the product of a good photographer. Now, you don't even need any professional photography lessons to get good photos, just make sure that you're practicing. Even if you just want good Instagram photos, make sure that you're taking every photo opportunity you can. I mean, not like crazy, don't be paparazzi now, y'all. But if you see a good opportunity for a photo, anything, landscape, just experiment, play around, take a photo, practice. Now, if you're somebody who's going to be posing in a photo, there are 2 ways to do this. You could either have a photographer or you could be your own photographer. Let's start with having a photographer. Now, you don't need a fancy professional photographer following you around that you're paying an hourly wage to snap photos with their $8,000 camera. Not a thing that needs to happen. It could be as simple as your friend, your family member. My boyfriend shoots my photos, my dad shoots my photos. Like my dad, who doesn't even know how to work a camera, has shot some incredible photos of me. And I was shocked. It's possible, I promise you. But in relying on someone to be your photographer, you have to essentially train them to be your photographer. This means encouraging the person to take as many photos from as different angles as possible. When you want someone to take a picture of you or ask for a picture, clarify. You mean like 100 pictures. And even if you don't want 100 pictures, trust me, you want 100 pictures to choose from. If your photographer is really not getting the whole different angle aspect, coach them a little. Can you stand over there? Can you stand here? Can you possibly kneel down? And make sure that between every couple of shots, just check back in on the camera and see if you're moving in the right track with good angles, with good lighting. Just make sure that everything's doing okay. Because I'm sure we would all love to take pictures of ourselves if we had a clone to do it for us, but you've got to trust someone else. Another thing, ask your photographer to speak up. If they're taking a photo of you that they just don't think you look too good in, have them tell you. If my face is oily, I'll be like, Taylor, tell me my face is oily. And I'm gonna run for that powder like you don't even know. Sometimes the best feedback to get from your photographer is just different ways to pose. Turn your head this way, angle your body that way, pull your shoulders back, pull your shoulders forward. Just little things like that encourage a person to tell you if they think it could make for a better shot. Now let's switch it back to you, if you're your own photographer. There are a couple ways to do this. You could take selfies, which is something you want to avoid too much of. Or you could take mirror selfies, which is something you should also avoid too much of. Or the other option, my personal favorite, set your camera on a timer to burst. If you've got a Mac like I do, go for it, use that opportunity. Most Macs from 2013 and forward have shot in HD. They've got a timer on it, they've got that massive big screen, 3 seconds to strike a pose and then take your photo. Those work out pretty good. And when you're looking at something from a massive screen and shrinking it down to your small iPhone, even with more pixelated photos, they tend to look a lot better when you've got them on your phone. A lot of DSLRs also come with a timer. I know with my DSLR, it gives me the option to shoot a timer for like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. You should have options like that. If you've got an iPhone, it also gives you a timer. And if you have this feature, set your camera to burst. This does not mean your camera will explode, but it means it will take pictures one after the other very quickly. So this gives you the ability to try different angles while your camera is taking photos of you without having to go back and reset up. Now let's get into one of the most important things about taking a good Instagram photo: lighting. Your best friend is gonna be natural lighting. Don't worry about having a bunch of lamps on and being in your bathroom or, you know, having a softbox or a diva ring or any of that fancy stuff. You don't need to be in a photo studio. My friends, just go outside. And if you don't want to go outside because you're as lazy as a sloth like me, you can just sit inside by your nearest window. Even overcast skies in the daytime tend to also be a really good, soft, even light source. Now, if you're outside on a day that's really, really bright and sunny, like smoldering hot summers in the Valley in California, or Vegas, or Florida, or wherever the hell, make sure you're not directly in the sunlight, because that leads to squinting photos, really harsh light, and really harsh shadows as well. Tends to not be super flattering. A good trick is make sure you're in the shade, because even when you're in the shade, you're still having all the light around you reflecting onto you and into the area that you're at. Lighting also makes for better quality photos. Have you ever noticed on your phone when you shoot in low light situations how everything gets super pixely and grainy? It just doesn't look very nice. When you shoot in very high light situations, your camera takes in all that light and it can actually perceive more detail. That's why you'll notice higher quality photos come from better lighting situations. Just remember, light is your best friend, and there's always a way to play around with it and make it work for you. Just get creative. And finally, the most important thing, if you're taking a portrait or full body photo, anything with a human subject or you as the subject, posing. Now, you don't have to be a supermodel to know how to strike a good pose and look good in your Instagram photos. Depending on your situation, you can use a couple of really good tricks. Now, ladies, one of the biggest tricks for slimming yourself out and making yourself look more confident is standing on your toes or even pointing your toes. If you're sitting down, laying down, point your toes. It accentuates your calf muscles, it tightens up all the muscles in your thighs. Also, if you're somebody who has got a booty and wants to do booty shots, point your toes, stand on your toes a little bit. It really rounds out your butt. That's a good trick. Another awesome trick, stand at an angle. 45-degree angles are your friend. Just about everyone looks good at a 45-degree angle. It really adds dimension to your photos instead of something just straight on, which straight on photos can look nice, but you also don't want your Insta feed to look like mugshots. Put one foot in front of the other. Put most of your weight onto your back leg, and then have your front foot touching the ground like you're about to walk on it or about to put weight onto it. This will take whatever weight or thickness or whatever in the back of your body and will push it towards the back of you. Instead of having it like hips or thighs or anything straight on, it creates the illusion of a slimmer, more slender version of yourself. Now, I'm totally for body positivity. I think you should do whatever makes you happy, but if you want to work your angles and find better angles for yourself, that's a really good one. And I realize it also adds a lot more dimension to a photo, and it makes a photo look more interesting when you look like you're doing something. Now, on the topic of doing something, do something! Make sure in your photos you're not just standing there the whole time. Even if you're just doing a fashion shot, or if you're sitting somewhere, make your photos interesting. Girls, play with your hair, flip it, do something. Guys, run your fingers through your hair. Play around with your clothes, adjust your collar, hands in your pockets. Really find ways to accentuate the piece of clothing that you're wearing to add some more interest to your photos. Also, interact with your surroundings. If you're sitting by a pool, splash your hand in the water. If you're by a tree, put your hand up on the tree. Touch the leaves, do some stuff. Interact with your environment. You don't want to look like someone who's standing in front of a green screen. You want to show that you are where you are. And another thing that might sound kind of weird, but add props to your photos. Not like actual play, show, musical props, just things that go with the setting. So if you're going to the beach, bring a beach ball, bring a beach towel, bring some sunglasses, put those in the photo. Have a couple shots playing with the beach ball. Maybe throw your sunglasses on. Make your shots interesting. Just make sure that you're utilizing your environment to get the most visually appealing photos and keep your photos from being boring. So just to recap this video, we went through the 5 types of photos that are best for your Instagram feed. The face shot, the full body shot, the landscape, the macro, and the aerial shot. We covered taking photos with a photographer, how to coach your photographer. We talked about taking photos by yourself, how to set a timer and set your camera to burst. We talked about lighting, and we talked about posing yourself. Hopefully, all of these tips help you to take better photos for your Instagram and feel more confident in the photos that you're taking. And be sure to give me a follow, because hopefully I can be some inspiration for you and your feed. So get out there and take some photos. If you've got any comments, questions, concerns, page hacks, requests, or side effects, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. That's it for today. Bye!